Hi everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in for today's video interview. Tony Restell here from Social Hire, and delighted today to be joined by Jada. Jada's going to be helping us understand all the challenges to do with managing teams remotely and leading effectively in that kind of remote world. So thanks ever so much for joining us today. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure, and thank you so much for having me today. Again, my name is Jada Willis. I am the CEO of Willis HR. We're an HR consulting and recruiting firm that really helps small businesses and nonprofits. So ultimately, those are the teams that really have less than 250 employees, could be remote and otherwise, and we really are that sourced HR function for these organizations.
That's fantastic. And so in terms of remote working and leading a team effectively, as a remote worker, what are some of the tips and advice that you would share with people?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing is what I've found in helping remote workers as well as remote leaders is that their remote leaders aren't planning and being as intentional as they need to be. And so meaning that they're taking for fact that in a traditional workplace, you get to see, you get to knock on your neighbor's door, you get to have these, random ad hoc meetings and even observe body language much more frequently to really understand and have a pulse of the organization. So we as remote leaders have to be very intentional about the communication strategies that we're rolling out for our team, how we communicate, how we engage, and really even how we are managing the performance and workload for our teams. And so ultimately, it's really focused more on have you outlined the expectations and not made assumptions, but outline truly the expectations, key performance indicators, and tied it back to the value of the workplace as a leader, and have you outline that for the team, and do they really understand expectations? Have you gotten their buy-in? And that's something where I see that I have struggled, but even as I have written the book for Pantsless Nation, HR Guidance for Remote Work, I've really listed all of those tips of really how to have a balance of that emotional, operational type of remote strategy.
Really interesting to hear about some of the mistakes that people make. And if you're a remote team leader and you want to create a high performing team, what would be some of the things that you would recommend someone focuses on?
Yeah, and thanks for asking that, because it's totally in line with the type of advice that we're giving. But it's really honing in on, again, that EO remote strategy. So what that means is there has to be that emotional support, and employees will vary with that. And they'll actually tell you what they need, what kind of feedback they're looking for, what kind of recognition they're looking for. So asking those questions, having very deliberate, honest conversations, and asking even, how are you doing? All of that sounds so simple, but plays into and gets lost in the mix. So then this is probably the biggest aspect of it. And 80% of the EO remote strategy is operational. So how are you organizing either the workflow and management? I have incorporated end of days. So every team member, despite the level, has to share their end of day. And it really highlights what have you done from a productivity standpoint, from a client perspective, how have you impacted your workload and your goals, and then even having those weekly calls. Now I want to dive into it just a little bit further. So Mondays for my team are going to be a longer call video chat, and it's going to be, it's revving up for the week. It's understanding what are the goals, what is the workflow for the organization, and what kind of help and support does that team member need, and do they know where to turn when they have roadblocks? Well, then by even Wednesday is more of a touch point, but by Friday, it's all about, hey, how do we celebrate the ends of the week? How do we even gear up and prepare our clients and ourselves for the next week? And so, but notice how intentional that is. Like every team member knows the agenda, knows what we're going to do in this whole EO remote strategy. They have expectation, and it's a lot of structure whenever remote feels kind of unstructured and unmanageable, whenever you as a leader put those parameters in place and that structure in place for your team. The team's not going to do it. and it's not their responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, you touched on a little bit staying connected and keeping your whole team engaged. Are there particular things besides the end of day touch points that you would recommend?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I heard likely of co-working spaces, right? So even how, some organizations, especially if they're remote or have distributed teams, actually leverage a remote workspace locally and a co-working space. Well, what about if you bring that concept back into your workplace? So sometimes whenever I have a pulse of my team and I can tell, you know what, they kind of need some interaction or they just need some extra motivation. Sometimes we schedule a couple hours of live remote working. We stay on a video chat, we stay on a call, and it's just them right next door working along. We can touch base with each other. Same point in time, we're staying connected via Slack, and we're very intentional about chat channels that we have. So if we just want randomness or random memes, now of course I'm HR, so be careful with that on how you organize it, what makes sense for your culture. But even if we have that, there are ways for your employees to provide their input, express themselves in the workplace, and engaged. And then don't forget about fun. You have, and not just happy hours. Okay, it's okay to have a happy hour, schedule that with your team. But I mean, I know that some of our clients even have like a movie day or a movie night where they even tell your remote employees to invite your kids. Let's all have a family movie, and we're all watching together. But it's again that additional bonding time. And then have your coffee chats, and don't let there be expectations. Even whenever you're having these things, it's okay to just say, "Hey, how's it going?" Or let's talk about what's going on in your world. What I saw Scruffy run up. How's he doing? And let's just literally be human. Have interactions that are genuine. Just because we're not in person doesn't mean we don't we neglect the exchange of energy that we really need to have as individuals.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I wanted to add is that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
The other thing I wanted to add is that me as a leader, as a business owner, I don't have to be on every call, every meeting with my employees. I actually want them on Tuesdays and Thursdays to have a call. They're focused on work. They know the agenda and that sort of thing. I don't need to be there. They get to collaborate. They get to work through issues themselves, and they don't have, the lead chiming in and maybe even making these assumptions about what they're doing or not doing. Get to help each other, and that fosters teamwork.
Fantastic tips. Jada, really interesting insights today. Thank you ever so much for your time. If people would like to find out more about your business or get in touch, is there a website address or any contact details you'd like to share?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So please visit willishr.com. We even have a free HR risk assessment, tons of free resources under our HR Essentials, but we even have a podcast. It's called HR After Dark. And I really encourage everyone to just stay in touch. There's really good, nuggets of information from a leadership perspective and from an HR perspective. So it's time, and I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of the week, everyone. Bye for now.